Welcome to the Age is Irrelevant podcast with your host, Helen Fritsch. Helen is a 60-plus lifelong competitive athlete, flight attendant, published fitness model, writer, IFBB bodybuilding pro, and certified wine specialist who believes that your age is irrelevant to pursue goals, dreams, and desires. Are you a woman in her 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond who still has a burning desire to pursue a dream or a passion? Are you thinking about starting a new chapter in your life, but you're hesitant, thinking that you might be too old or just don't know where to begin? The Age is Irrelevant podcast is a podcast devoted to women who want to defy the odds, smash barriers, and redefine happiness and success after 40. It's time to make a difference. There is no need to dread blowing out that added birthday candle every year. A new movement is slowly taking momentum, where being over the hill just isn't relevant anymore. Age labels are being thrown out the window, and women are rediscovering the strength within themselves to make a difference, not only within their own lives, but also touching and inspiring the lives of other women. Join Helen as she and her guests discuss all aspects of aging after 40 and how to make the aging process and those twilight years more rewarding, exciting, and fun.
Hello and welcome to the Age is Irrelevant podcast. I'm your host, Helen Fritsch, and this is episode 100. I am super stoked to be able to give you 100 episodes, interviewing the most 100 amazing women who are transformational, motivational, and inspirational. This episode is also very special for me because I had the privilege and honor of interviewing 100-year-old Mildred Kirschenbaum and her Emmy Award-winning daughter, filmmaker, TV producer, writer, photographer, coach, and speaker, Gayle Kirschenbaum. Now, I wanted to have this mother-daughter duo on because I think a lot of us can relate to their life story. I know I personally can. I had a very strained relationship with my mother growing up, and we did not resolve our differences, unfortunately, until about 6 months prior to her death. And Mildred and Gayle also had a very strained relationship as Gayle grew up. And having them on the show and talking about both of their lives, way back when, Gayle is as old as I am. She's a few years older. She's going to be 70 here pretty soon. But I think a lot of us will be able to identify and relate to this mother-daughter story where things were very strained to the point now where they have developed a very, very close bond, and a lot of forgiveness has been happening over the last several years. And now Mildred is a social media sensation, and she has written a book and just so many other great things. So without further ado, let me introduce you on my 100th episode to the mother-daughter duo, dynamic duo, I guess I should say, of Gayle and Mildred Kirschenbaum. Hi, Mildred. Hi, Gayle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. So for my listeners, I am speaking to the mother-daughter dynamic duo and virtual internet darlings, social media sensations, Mildred and Gayle Kirschenbaum. Now, what's really so special about these two? Well, first of all, Mildred is going to be 101 years old, and Gayle is going to be 70 years old. And the preface goes by here is when Mildred celebrated her 99th birthday, Gayle shared a video of her on Instagram, which sent off this viral sensation. Gayle initially used her social media account for photography, but redirected the spotlight to showcase her mom's wisdom and unique bond that they shared. They grew major attention from people like Maria Shriver and other major media outlets, including NBC's Today's Jenna and Hoda, CBS and Fox,
who have featured Mildred. Their publications like the Daily Mail, Next Avenue, AARP, Yahoo News, and the Sunday paper also highlighted her inspiring story. Mildred has written a book called Mildred's Mindset, Wisdom from a Woman's Centenarian, where she helps readers follow her embark on a journey through the extraordinary life lessons of a centenarian whose vitality and wisdom defy age. Through her engaging anecdotes of her adventurous travels and active social life, she reveals the art of savoring every moment, making new connections, and even especially in the golden years. Now, Gayle is an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker, TV producer, writer, TED Talk speaker, photographer, and forgiveness coach. She's created several reality shows and has gained her acclaim for her film, Look at Us Now, Mother, which chronicles her journey to forgive her mother and transform her relationship. I've been following Gayle for a while, and then all of a sudden I see this little twist and turn, and it's been so fun to watch them both go on trips and travel the world and see eyes through both of their generations. And I was like, I have to have these two on the show. So again, thank you so much for joining me. And where I love to start is just always in the beginning. So Mildred, why don't you tell us a little about your life growing up, your childhood, where you were born and all that fun stuff?
I was born in Brooklyn. I had a very loving mother, but I had a sad childhood. My mother lost a child who caught pneumonia from someone else. Today, you give them penicillin, they're fine. So while she was in the hospital with the child, I sat in the hospital corridors waiting for her to come down. In those days, children weren't allowed up, but it was safe to sit there. Then my father's business went bad. He owned a stable where Juan and Bailey housed their animals, and there was a fire, no insurance. He was in the wholesale produce business, and he decided that if he took his life, he had a $2,000 policy. In those days, it was a lot of money. My mother would have the money to live on. Well, the suicide attempt was not culminated, and he ended up in the hospital and there again. So my memories of childhood is sitting in hospital corridors day after day after day. But my mother was a helicopter mother, and she loved me. I went to an academic school. When I was accepted to Hunter High, she wouldn't let me go. She didn't want me to go on the trains alone. I played violin, and it was different. It was easy to get into Juilliard. You didn't have to be a genius. Mm-hmm. When I was accepted there, she wouldn't let me go because I had to go by train. So that was my childhood. I went to work early to support myself. Took up stenotype for court stenography. Hated transcribing notes, and so I gave it up. And I got a job in the garment center. I did a little secretarial work, a little modeling. And I met my wonderful husband, because I know the world is going to laugh. But in my generation, if you wanted sex, you got married. And we got married. And how much more would you like to know?
Well, keep going, because we have to bring in where Gayle was born.
No. I had 3 wonderful children. I was not only a housewife, I always worked philanthropically. I was president of the sisterhood. I was vice president of Nassau County for cerebral palsy. And Gayle was born. She was always at my side, but Gayle was the artist in the family. Different. If I wanted an invitation, she would draw the cup and saucer for me. But we're a numbers family. And I didn't really respect her art the way I should have. So we became at odds. Gayle forgave me a long time ago, but I forgave myself. And I could tell you one thing. Now that my husband is gone, I would rather travel the world with Gayle than anyone else. We get along. But I said to her, we're like an old married couple. Even to today. If I get angry at her, I hang up. But if she calls me back or I call her back, we don't discuss it. It's water under the bridge.
And that's
It's a very healthy relationship that we have. And Gayle's free to say yay or nay.
Well, that's awesome. I love hearing that because so many people, especially today, hold grudges. And
No.
grudges, cause anxiety and stress and cause...
And stress is the downfall of everything.
It really is.
Attitude and stress is the downfall of your life.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
So what do you have to say, Gayle?
I don't know. Are you done?
No, I can interrupt you.
Did I interrupt you?
No, that doesn't mean a thing.
Okay, Gayle. So now you've shown up.
Okay, so I was the youngest of three. So after two boys, she had me, and you would think she won the lottery.
I did, but I didn't know how to show it.
Say that again.
I did win the lottery when you were born. You were the queen with the basket of the sleeping bassinet with bows and satin and everything. But you were an artist and you had your own mind very young. And I might not have agreed with it. And so when I said no, it was no out of love, but you didn't take it as such.
So we're talking about control, okay? Mm-hmm. So I came into this world as I'm going to stop. As a very sensitive person, very sensitive and very intuitive. So in a way, I don't know if your readers your audience will relate to this, but I feel like I came in as an old soul into a family of new souls. I feel like I came with some knowledge. And she was more or less out to get me from my earliest memories. And she tells the story. It's in my film. You didn't see the film, right? Look at Us Now, Mother?
Not yet, but I actually am going to watch it.
Okay. Because she talks about how she took a saliva test, for pregnancy, and she found out 50% she's having a boy. Now, she's right. I'm not good in math, but I do know what 50% means. And 50% you're having a boy is very interesting because I know what that means. So she told everyone she's having, that Gary will be coming home from the hospital. My brothers were waiting for Gary. Back in the days, I'm born in the 50s, and here in New York, we were not like out on a farm. I was knocked out, and I have to assume it was forceps that delivered me. I'm not sure, but she was knocked out, I think, for all three children, and woken up and told she had a girl. So I think I say in the film, we got off to a bad start from the get-go. And so, if you're anticipating Gary, you find out you have Gayle. So
it was a pleasant surprise.
You had a funny way of showing it. So it was very difficult. I was and am a very independent thinker and a super sensitive person. And as I said, pretty intuitive. So I couldn't really understand why I was being punished and criticized constantly, everything about me, and I could never do anything right, and observing my brothers being loved and adored. And then they kind of came on board, It was, you hold your sister down, you put your sister on the refrigerator. I was just a little kid. So they were kind of working for my mom, the bouncers, let's say. And that kind of behavior and that kind of bullying and abuse continued to adult life. I mean, they were like that as adults, and they became very successful professionals. So it was very hard. I also now this hair was ironed by my friend, but I have very curly hair. And she did not like it. And
it was
so
up to here and out to there.
But I was a little girl in third grade. It wasn't down to here in third grade. And she was having my hair professionally straightened. And so I felt like, oh no, I have this horrible hair. And then as I began to develop, my nose started to grow and I developed a bump. And that was all hell broke loose about my nose. And well, she wanted, and I apparently my father too, but she was a spokesperson, but I don't think she needed encouragement to have a nose job. So my nose was made fun of and called many things. I was called many things, lots of insults. And of course, my middle brother joined in. And by the way, the funny thing is I might have this bump, but my nose is smaller than hers and smaller than my brother's. But I was the one that was supposed to have the nose job. And so I ended up not being very happy. And because I lived in fear of her punishment, because it was, first of all, it was irrational rage turned towards me, didn't even do anything. And then so all of this, this is when I teach forgiveness. I talk a lot about it. When it's our repressed emotions and all our emotions go into our body, right? And so I ended up sick. I had headaches constantly, dizzy spells, nausea. I was very skinny. I couldn't gain weight. I had zero appetite. And I remember in seventh grade, I was in a carpool on the way to Hebrew school. And I said to the other kids in the carpool, I have a headache. And they all said, what's that? And I thought, well, doesn't everyone have a headache? And so I ended up with encouragement of a social worker, leaving home early. I got early admissions to college. I mean, I did, I think I studied as far as biology in high school. I don't know. I did whatever was required to get out of high school. And I went to a state school. And again, it was another sort of double standards. It's kind of the brothers' education was more important for them, so they could go wherever they want. They went to private schools, one became a doctor, one became a lawyer. For me, you're going to be a teacher because you're going to get married and have babies and go back to it. Also, I didn't want to be a flight attendant because we grew up near JFK. It was Idlewild when I was very young. Mm-hmm. And they traveled quite a bit. And I had this huge fantasy of like leaving and seeing the world because we lived in a very homogeneous world, a community. And I was like, I want, look at these people at the airport. Like, where are they from? I want to know what they eat, so that little fantasy of, if I get that job, then I could travel the world. But I certainly did not want to be a teacher. So when it did come time for college, she said, well, you're, no private school for you. You go to a city or a state school. So I got into a school, upstate New York. I went to Binghamton. It's a state university in New York. And went right into the art department. So for the first time in my life, I was around like-minded. I had my like-minded friends when I grew up, but I was now like living among everyone. I wasn't coming home to unpredictable rage and irrational behavior. So that was great. So I wasn't coming home to the abuse. I was now in a dorm. And that was it. That was the beginning of me. I was 16, or at the end of my 16th year. So it was the best place for me. Also, it was where a lot of kids from the boroughs of New York went. So it was, I grew up in a upper middle class area where kids were quite privileged. So I really felt like I belonged. With that privilege comes attitude. And I was very happy to be around kids from the boroughs. They were all smart. It was a very good school, but they weren't going off to Brandeis or Columbia because these are private schools. They had the brains, but they went to the state school. So, I always joke, I wish I grew up in Brooklyn. But so that was really great. It was great for me to be there at that time. And I started to build my confidence. I didn't have much of it growing up. I think I suffered from imposter syndrome when I was young because all my friends were really smart and intellectual. And I just, when you're living in a fight or flight moment, when you're on guard because you never know what you did wrong or didn't do wrong, but the rage is targeted at you. I couldn't concentrate. I'd start reading. It was Herman Hesse then, or all these books my friends were reading, and then I'd lose my concentration. So I always felt this imposter syndrome when my friends were talking about the books, and I would just pray no one would ask me a question about them. But I was always very creative. So my escape when I was very young, starting when I was young, was writing in diaries. And because I always was sort of drawing and doodling, I drew in them. But it was hard because I came home one day for school and I found my diaries on my bed. She had found them and showed them to her friends. And her excuse was, I wanted to show your drawings. And I'm like, really? And I used to say, I'm going to put it.
She was so artistic. I wanted to show it.
So find my diaries and show them to other people.
As a matter of fact, when she was 18, my husband and I sent her to Italy to study art.
I was not 18. I was 15. But in any event,
15.
This is when I was turning 16. And it was like, do you want the sweet 16 party? You want the nose job or the teen tour? And then I found this teen tour that was painted in Italy. And I just, thought that would be so great to learn to paint in Italy. And it was a no-brainer. I never wanted the nose job and I really couldn't care about the party. And then that threat until I was on the plane was, we're canceling the teen tour. You're getting a nose job. It was always my nose. And I don't know if your audience or the age of your audience, but if anybody remembers the buffalo nickel with the Indian head on the other side, you remember it? Yes. So one thing she always said is my nose looks like the Indian or the buffalo nickel. Among many other things, but that was a recurring theme. But I was fine with my Indian nose.
I actually got a nose job when I was 38 because I had my dad's nose and I had a big bump, right here. And it just drove me crazy.
At 38, you got it. Wow.
So I have a big one here, but it doesn't bother me.
No, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me now.
Well, when you get her over it, you make a movie called My Nose, you put attention on it, and that's when you wear them down.
Right, exactly. So I was going to ask you about My Nose. So tell us about the documentary, because I think that's, kind of just tell us about it and then I'll give you my thoughts.
Okay. So just to give a teeny bit of background. So I ended up in television. I went into TV. I was 32, so I had a career of 12 years before that because I finished university when I was 20. And so I was always behind the camera telling other people's stories. And then when I moved back to New York, I had gotten this dog. Believe it or not, I rescued her from my brother. He was in Florida and she was a little Shih Tzu. And I brought her back to LA and she went with me on shoots. I was directing for America's Most Wanted and all these shows. And I get a call last minute and I had, you probably know, the Sherpa bag, the bag that, yeah. So Gayle Marks, who developed it, was actually on my board. So she was always sending me all these Sherpa bags. So I would she went with me all the time in that Sherpa bag and she was soundly asleep. She was a little Shih Tzu. So anyway, I came back to New York and I saw how people reacted to her. if I opened up the zipper and her head popped out on the subway and some guy all scarred up, mean, he would just like melt when he saw her. So anyway, I had an idea for a TV series. I had a camera built for her. And this is before GoPro. It was like 2001. And then I hit the streets of New York, and all of a sudden I got all this media and the New York Times. It was while I was just working on it on Today Show, many talk shows. And then I ended up making it a film, and it's called The Dog's Life, a Documentary. And 9/11 happened while I was shooting it, and I don't live all that far away. So as people were escaping the towers, I went out on the river trying to help people and document stories, and then volunteered right away. And she became a certified therapy dog. So we just sort of changed gear, and as the film did. So that put me in front of the camera. That ended up on HBO. This is years before streaming. And then I felt comfortable in front of the camera, as long as I'm me, I'm not an actress. And I said to my mom, you've wanted to get me in a plastic surgeon's office for years. And I am willing to do that I'll get 3 consultations as long as I can have a camera crew along with me. And she agreed. And I ended up, what resulted was a short, funny film called My Nose, about her relentless campaign to get me to have a nose job. And it's very funny and fluffy. And then this little film got a lot of attention, and it was all these festivals. And it was in Washington, D.C., when we ended up on the cover of the Washington Post style section, and they pulled the image. It's what I was saying before. It's in my film, but they pulled it out. It's my profile in front of the Indian on the Buffalo nickel. It was like a really big picture. And then the text under it said, if you have a mother like Gayle Kirschenbaum, you better get yourself into psychoanalysis. So Mom, that was the lead into the article, and Mom read it, and she said, great, bad press is better than no press. I'm on the cover of the Washington Post. So it was good to see her reaction. And when I was, on panels for the film, because it's a little movie, so it was
right. Okay.
So what happened was when I would hear these people's comments and they would share something about their own childhood trauma, I realized, oh my God, I'm so not alone, and so many people are suffering. And that's when I developed my 7 steps to finding forgiveness. And I started teaching it and workshopping. And then I asked my mother, I said, would you be willing to work on our relationship in front of the camera? And I wasn't surprised when she said yes, because if she reacted to that press saying, great, that line. And there were other people who said I cast my mother as the villain, and she read everything and she was so unmoved by it. I realized that I wasn't surprised when she said yes. And I knew I had a gold mine, because in her, of course, for me, when I was growing up, she was the Wicked Witch of the West, but in her older years, her senior twilight years, she became very funny and very witty, and the queen of the one-liners. Plus, I had all this material. Like, my father bought he bought the suit, the 8mm. I bought high 8. He bought 8mm camera in the 50s. So there's footage of her pregnant with me, and the next piece of footage is me as an infant in her arms. And then I knew I'm going to have to go back and get their background, right? Like what happened in their childhoods, and then even another generation back.
Exactly.
So I knew I had been doing my genealogy since 1982. So I had audio cassette interviews with family members, like her mother, and part of that's in there. My grandmother, who was very dear to me. I remember my father's World War II book. He was stationed in the South Pacific, and he was proudly always showing me these pictures of him and the bare-breasted Native women. So I knew there was that. I knew they had letters they wrote back and forth. So, and then she has a million pictures of herself from the 30s. And I was just even asking her that not that long ago, when the book has a gallery of pictures of her life also. And as I was back in the archive, I'm like, I cannot believe how many photographs you have. They're in these plastic sleeve envelopes where, you slip the picture in the sleeve, and they're small. These are small sleeves. And in each sleeve, there's like 4 pictures shoved in there. And they're all from the 30s and let's say the early 40s. It's not like there were iPhones then. Somebody had to shoot them and print them. And it's her modeling and posing and being very glamorous, and it's like, did you have your own staff photographer or something? And then I did find a picture of her with a Brownie camera. So if she owned that camera, maybe she gave it to someone.
Yes, I took a picture of Frank Sinatra and we can't find it.
She said she took a picture of Frank Sinatra, but I have not seen
when
that
he
one.
performed at the Paramount with that Brownie camera.
That's amazing.
In that picture. So anyway, just to bring you up to date. So she said yes. And so that's when I started working on the film. And then I got sick, which I don't know if I told you about it. Did I tell you about that? Okay. Well, I am all mind, body, spirit. I am a firm believer how our emotions, whether, our repressed emotions, our stress, whatever, goes into our body. But I didn't exactly make the connection when I was working on the film and I got sick. I developed a skin problem on my fingers, and it was so bad. I will show you. Of course, people won't be able to see it in hearing this, but it was. First they said it was eczema, and then they said it was psoriasis. But quite honestly, here I am in New York, supposedly the land of the best doctors, or great doctors at least, and I went to every head of dermatology. I was first on prednisone. Okay, I'm going to put it here. Right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my word.
Right.
Oh, my word.
So it was so excruciating. How would you describe what you're seeing?
I can't even. It's like crusty,
Raw and painful.
raw. Exactly. I mean, it looks painful.
Crusty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's plaque. It's thick and plaque and split and bleeding. And I had no fingerprints. I mean, it covered my fingers, and it was painful. So I had to wear vinyl gloves because your hands are exposed, bleeding all the time because of the cracks. So, so I tried all the Western medicine, prednisone, laser. I did not go for Humira. They wanted Humira, and that was it. I said, I'm not doing that. I went down to Chinatown. I did Chinese herbs. Nothing helped. I mean, let's say the prednisone, a little piece would come back, and then once I went off it, it would come back to thick and plaque and crusty. So 4 years, and I have many friends that travel the world or live around the world, and I got known for my hands. I'd answer the phone. Oh, Gayle, how are your hands? And they would say, oh, I met somebody. I'm in India. I'm somewhere. And we've got the cream. And everyone was shipping me the magic cream, lotion, potion, whatever. But nothing helped. And I was 4 years into this. And I used to live in Los Angeles. And I had a fantastic doctor named Dr. David Wells, who is a chiropractor / acupuncturist. He's like a combo. And he was the head of the board in California. I had been out of Los Angeles for like 15 years by that time or something like that. I mean, I was years out of there. I emailed him my pictures and I said, my fingers, and I said, can you help me? I will fly out there. And his email back was, you need love. And I wrote back, yeah, I know, but I'm alone, And then he emailed me back, what about your dog? I went right back to him. I said, she died. It was his third email that the light bulb went off for me. He says, you have to trick yourself. And that is when I knew it wasn't what Western medicine was saying, such as, you must be allergic to something or detergent or this or that this was all emotions. And what really triggered it was when I was working on the film. And as a storyteller, I was trying to figure out, how am I going to take my audience back in time to my childhood so they will understand and feel the pain I went through? To be a middle-aged woman and just complaining about your childhood, I didn't think that was going to be great. And then I remembered I had kept these diaries and I didn't know where they were. I had moved many times since my childhood. And it took me a few months and I did find them. And it was a box up in very high in the closets. And I brought it down and lots of little books. And I sat and read them and I essentially relived it. I relived the trauma and I was in a constant state of crying. And as an empath, which I believe you are also based on your reaction before, I feel other people's pain. And I was so highly sensitized. So when here I'm in Manhattan, I walk out on the streets and I'd see a homeless person. And for some reason, I must have been a magnet. They would come over to me. Remember this one woman, and we were hugging, and her husband died, and she didn't have money she didn't show me her medical, she needed a test, and hugging, and I'm whipping out a $20 bill to give her some money, and we're both crying. So I wore sunglasses at night. I wore sunglasses all the time because I was always crying. So after that call with him, I said, and I remember when they were lasering. So one of the things they were doing was lasering the Western medicine, the doctors, was lasering my fingers. And not only was it not getting better, it was getting worse. And I remember I was booked to have 20 sessions. And I remember saying to the doctor, okay, we're in 10. When do you call it quits? And he said clearly that Western science only deals with the symptoms. They don't go to the source. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I guess we can call it quits now. I said, good idea. Because, it wasn't doing anything. Why continue? So after I corresponded with Dr. Wells, and when he said that, I then linked that this is all about me reliving trauma now because of going through my journals and working on this film. So I found an energy healer, and Skype was the word at the time, not Zoom.
Right.
I booked 3 sessions. I remember I was very much on a very extreme budget because when you devote your time to being an indie filmmaker and you're doing everything yourself and you don't really have a fundraiser there and you're scrounging and raising a little here and there, you're really careful about spending. So I did 3 sessions, and what she did was tell me about tapping. EFT, emotional freedom technique. Are you familiar with that? Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so she just explained to me what it was, and I bought Gary Craig's book and I watched his videos. I had also learned how to meditate. And the third thing was, for some reason, the universe, I think they respond when, the universe shows up for you. And in my inbox, for some reason, was this Chinese Qigong master named Shun Li. And I just bought his tapes. I didn't even do the movement. It was audio tapes back. It was cassette tapes. And I just would listen to his tapes. But every day in the morning and at the end of the day, I did my routine. And in a month, my fingers came back.
Wow.
So, right. So I joke I have mood fingers because when I get stressed, I start seeing patches of skin and I start doing my whole thing. And if I'm to look at it on a bigger level, the skin, it's our biggest organ, but it's also where my reactions come out. 2 things is my skin. When I grew up, my mom is a fashionista and she wanted her daughter to always look beautiful and gorgeous. And I say in the Nose film, like I was her doll to dress up and do as she wanted. So she put me in organdy dresses, which I was highly allergic to. So here I am, 3-4 years old, and I had welts, like giant welts everywhere. So my skin, so here I am reacting to, through the skin, and then hands, we hold on to things. So I thought this was so incredible because my skin is releasing this and I have to open up my hands and let go. So, yeah. And then I realized how powerful we are. That we can get ourselves sick and we can heal ourselves. So it was, in the end, an amazing experience. It was 4 years steady. And when COVID broke out and no one could get masks or gloves, I had leftover gloves. I had my vinyl gloves.
You were very popular on the street.
Yeah, right. I was able to give them out. And so I want to say about Mom, after the movie came out and it got a lot of attention and it was in theaters and then it was on Netflix and just, it's evergreen. People still watch it. I got asked to do a TED Talk. And I call it No More Drama with Mama. And I call my movement No More Drama with Mama in my teachings. And I had hired a professional coach to help me shape it. But it was a disaster. She had never shaped a TED Talk. She had me writing a thesis. I had 15 minutes,
Right.
So I let her go. And then I watched many TED Talks. I read a book about, the various formats. And guess who became my best consultant? She's still my best story consultant. My mother. And she has an amazing sense of story. She should have been a phenomenal fiction writer. So even though I'm writing about what a horrible mother she was to me and how abusive, she can remove herself and give me some good critical feedback from a storytelling point of view, which I do think is pretty remarkable.
What you didn't tell her is I never asked her to see the film.
Oh, right. So this is very important. Not once did she ask me to see the film. I could have released this to the public with her never seeing it. She completely trusted me. But my brother, who's now deceased, was different. He was very uptight about it. And I did not want anybody in my family to see the film until I locked screen because I didn't want to be influenced by their opinion.
Right.
Right. So I knew I had to make the film and make I got feedback from other people, but I didn't want them to see it. And so when he asked to see it in its rough state, I wouldn't do it. And then when he said he didn't want to be in it, I was like, oh my God, I need him in it. He was already in it. So I had a private screening at NYU at the film school. I just used the screening room and we had about 100 people. And Mom flew up and there was a standing ovation. And do you remember what you said to the audience?
I didn't know I was such a bitch.
She comes to the stage and looks at everyone and goes, I didn't know I was such a bitchy mother.
Well,
so when she,
and then they asked me, what's my next film? I told them porn.
She's like one of the reporters called her the geriatric shock jock. She is like the Howard Stern of her age.
That's very funny. Well, just watching you on social media and hearing you, especially Gayle, when you're filming her, like on your cruise and all that other kind of fun stuff, your little one-liners and little funny, quirks and stuff. I mean, I was like loving everything. So, this journey of you guys being estranged and then coming together, it's really just a beautiful story. And I think it's something that everybody can relate to because I think at one point in life, all of us have not gotten along with our parents at some point for whatever reason. But I think as we get older, it's important for us to forgive like you guys have because, in the end, my mother's been gone. She died in 1996, and she died of cancer. But we were all there by her side. And it was very comforting for me to know that when she did pass, that we were good. Because I would have really felt that if we were still estranged, that I would have so much guilt on my heart to this day. So I was very happy that we were able to make amends. Of course.
That's good.
So I'm very thrilled that the same has happened with you guys too, because I think Mildred, especially for you being 100 and being, such a free spirit now and living your best life, at 100 years. I mean, you have 100 years of memories and seeing the world change. I mean, you must be just overwhelmed. Like Gayle, you and I talk about, like, you'll say something like I was, like I mentioned earlier, I'm in Atlantic City with family, and my sister and I went shopping a little earlier, and we were in this little boutique, and I tried on this outfit, and I looked at the gal, the sales clerk, and I said, "This is very Judy Jane Jetson. And she busted out laughing because she knew. And I was like laughing, going, I'm like, right? She goes, you're absolutely right. The shoulder pads, I mean, totally. So, a lot of kids would be like, who's that? So it is very heartwarming to see you guys. And it's also very heartwarming that you've, shared this with the world and made a documentary and, let people know your story, because that will inspire others to also get on the path of forgiveness.
And my book will be out next year, my memoir.
That's amazing. So for people who want to reach out to you, follow you, buy your book, Mildred, where can we find your book? I think it's on Amazon. Is that right?
Yeah, it's on many platforms. So, but this is Audible.
Audible.
No, this is not, it's not going to be a video.
It's not going to be a video. It's just audio. But
yeah,
the name of Mildred's book is Mildred's Mindset, Wisdom from a Woman Centenarian.
Exactly. And it is on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. And actually, they can also go to the website for the book. If you could put a link below, I can send you a link. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
If they go to the website for the book, where they'll get a lot of information and they can read the articles and things and some history, it will give you direct links to, even our distributor is Ingrid Spark. So I think you can get the best deals if you buy direct from there. And so what's available now is the hardcover, the paperback, and the ebook. And I'm working on the Audible. And I do want to share, we were very lucky because it's the fans that made this happen. I wasn't going to ever do this. And they all started screaming, where's Mildred's book? Mildred needs a book. And then they all said, I polled and they said, self-published, you don't have time for traditional, and we'll help you do GoFundMe. And they did.
Wow.
And so now we're in our second GoFundMe because we're raising for the Audible and for the book tour. But it's amazing. So it got put together super fast. And actually, I told my publisher for my memoir, she wanted to release it now, actually, Mother's Day. And I said, no, we have to wait till next year because this is the year of my mother. So even though my book is about my story with my mother, but this is really to get out to the world, her tips about life. And I don't know, you saw it or you never saw it? Or you did see it? Because the book, or are you familiar with it or you're not?
I mean, I am familiar with it. I haven't read the book, but I am familiar with it, yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah.
I shouldn't see it.
Yeah.
What I love about it, too, is that you're like one of your main things, Mildred, was don't fret about the small stuff. And that you love going out with friends, traveling the world, and never missing a happy hour.
Oh, yeah.
That's what's amazing. And so what's your, both of you all, like as far as social media, if people want to start following you?
So the social media, so Instagram and TikTok is the same. We're more active on Instagram, but if you're on both, follow us on both. It's at Gayle Kirschenbaum. So that's GLKIRSCHENBAUM. And then a lot end up on Facebook under my account, Gayle Kirschenbaum. So I'm it's my account. It's not hers. So don't follow, even though she has an Instagram account, she doesn't use it. Okay. So I see people, she started getting a lot of followers, but I write there, please, all the postings are on Gayle Kirschenbaum.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Well, this has been great. It's been like a little over an hour that we've been talking. Thank you for sharing your story. I love that the fact that you all are standing ground here in today's world and really showing and especially to women over 50 that forgiveness is key to living a stress-less, happy life.
Yeah.
You're right.
I want to just put out to your audience that I am a forgiveness coach. So I've made it my mission to help other people because it totally transformed my life. And the steps and what I teach could apply to anybody, but the primary relationship is the most important. We have to go back to our primary relationship, but forgiveness is key. And forgiveness doesn't mean we forget, and it doesn't mean we have to reconcile. I did.
Right.
I didn't forget, but I reconciled.
Right. And they can find you on your website, right?
Yes, the website or through social media. In social media, the bio links, it's called Linktree, so it has many links. But my website's my name, GayleKirschenbaum.com.
Okay.
You know, Gayle with the Gayle. Well, you're going to put it there, right? Yeah, because it's Gayle with a Y.
Why? All right.
Yeah,
ladies.
and I love helping other people. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
It was a pleasure to meet you both, you and you too, Gayle. I feel like I know you. We've been in constant contact now for like the last 6 months or so, but I'm thrilled that we finally got together. I will keep you posted on everything as far as when everything will be released and everything. So have a great...
Well, thank you.
Thank you, and enjoy your stay in Atlantic City.
Yes. Yeah. She likes to gamble. So I have one question off air, though, not on air.
All right. Hold on a second. I'll take care. I sure hope you enjoyed this conversation with Mildred and Gayle. There were so many things that I could relate to hearing their conversations and their stories. Strong mother-daughter relationships are built on understanding, open communication, and healthy boundaries. I know personally that I had none of this with my mother. There was no such thing as open communication between us. I never talked to my mother about anything, especially when I was in high school. And as I got older, the gap between us continued to widen, especially when I left home for college. I feel extremely fortunate and grateful that I was able to reconcile with my mother before she passed away. Gayle experienced hardship with her mother growing up, and it took a toll on her also. Many times, our parents were just not aware of the way they were treating us. Mildred was 99 years old when she realized that she was a mean mother to Gayle. Estrangement can be extremely difficult and painful for both mother and daughter, as there is distance and a void between them. The biggest gift you can give yourself is the ability to forgive. Learning how to forgive unleashes the noose around our neck. And scientific studies have proven that the act of forgiveness lowers the risk of heart disease, blood pressure, diabetes, depression, and autoimmune disease. It's important to understand that forgiveness is a process that requires self-reflection, empathy, and a willingness to let go of revenge and retribution. It does not mean forgetting, condoning, excusing, or downplaying the seriousness of the offense. Forgiveness is about releasing the negative emotions associated with the offense. Luckily, Mildred and Gayle were able to work through their conflicts, and today their relationship is better than ever. I highly recommend you watch Gayle's documentary called Look at Us Now, Mother. She takes a raw, funny look back at her tumultuous relationship with her mother and the struggle to learn to love and accept and forgive. If you would like to reach out to Gayle and Mildred or follow them on social media, you can find them on Facebook at Gayle Kirschenbaum, and that's Gayle, and then Kirschenbaum is KIRSCHENBAUM, or on Instagram at GL Kirschenbaum. You can also go to Gayle's website, GayleKirschenbaum.com, to reach out to Gayle, and you can also buy Mildred's book there called Mildred's Mindset, Wisdom from a Woman Centenarian. If you'd like to find me, you can find me at www.ageisirrelevant.com, and you can shoot me an email at helen@ageisirrelevant.com. As always, it's been a pleasure to have you with me on these last 100 episodes, and hopefully there will be 100 more after this. And until next time, age truly is irrelevant. Bye-bye.